I call Paul Fosterbill.
Thank you, sir, for this opportunity to contribute on part 2 of this Committee of the Whole House debate. Sir, I want to pose a couple of questions to the member on part 2 of this bill. I don't have high hope that they will be answered or even addressed, given what happened with my questions on part 1, but I'm going to ask them anyway. I have a couple of comments to make first, though, on the contribution of the member in charge of this bill. Firstly, I think the comparison that has been drawn between the extra funding that has been sought via this measure and the $20 billion investment into our defence force that has been considered in the white paper process is completely fallacious and specious, and I think quite misleading to the public. Firstly, I think governments over a number of generations now have accepted that the defence of the realm is the first and absolutely primary responsibility of any government, and no child in this country, Mr Prosser, no child is able to live a happy and healthy and productive life in this country if they don't live in a safe country that is well guarded and well defended, and that's why that investment in our defence force is required. But secondly, the term over which the member is talking is quite different. She's comparing apples and pears. That is an investment to be considered over a 15-year period, whereas the costings that the government side has been quite correctly using, and let's point out that these are Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment costings, and I think it's disrespectful to the officials who did their very best work and submitted those figures, those, in some cases, estimates, Ms Moroney. In some cases, they were forecasts, they're predictions, they're guesses, because this is something that might happen in the future. But those very best guesses that they were able to give us were in the range of just under $500 million, but over a 4-year period once this policy takes full force. So she's comparing something over a 4-year period with something over a 15-year period. I think that that's a very false comparison to make, and it is quite misleading to any of the poor, unfortunate viewers who may be following this debate this evening. But secondly, sir, I want to turn to the fact that there has been a split view, in fact a mixed series of opinions given to us as we heard submissions on the Select Committee. I want to reference in particular the submission made to the committee by the Child Poverty Action Group, because I think that evidences very much the fact that there is not universal agreement on this among the NGOs and those who care very deeply about the well-being of children in New Zealand. And in referencing the submission presented by Associate Professor Susan St John, the respected Professor of Auckland University, I'd like to quote directly from the submission, if I may. We're talking
about 26 weeks
so,
now.
In terms of the 26 weeks, what the Child Poverty Action Group had to say was extending the duration of paid parental leave will have no impact on child poverty, which is the most critical issue at this time and a stated priority of the government, contrary, it seems, to what the opposition whip is screaming out at the moment. In fact, they went on to say, spending more on paid parental leave may preclude more vital spending for the 250,000 children in New Zealand enduring poverty, such as extending working for families to all the low-income children as CPAG has represented. So their submission, number one, the Child Poverty Action Group submitted that the extension of paid parental leave to 26 weeks, as is proposed in Part 2 of this bill, be delayed until there is adequate recognition of the needs of all newborns. So this, I think, backs up some of the points that members on this side of the House have been making thus far in the debate. There are always competing priorities for precious taxpayers' dollars. This is one very important area, looking out for our youngest and most vulnerable citizens, but it's not only this measure which is competing for those precious taxpayer dollars. And to divert resources from our hospital system, our education system, even the defence of this country, to extend to something that we are not able to afford, I think, in my view, is the wrong path of action to take. And that's not just members on this side of the House who are saying it. There are people, including some who we would often disagree with, such as the Child Poverty Action Group, who gave, I think, quite a persuasive submission to the Select Committee. So I'd like to hear from the member in the chair, the sponsor of this bill, what her view was on their submission and why she thinks it's important that we ignore that and actually proceed with 26 weeks, which she argues is not an arbitrary figure. It's a World Health Organisation mandated figure. Well, let's just reflect on, Mr. Chair.
I
Mr.
call
Chair.
Ian Lee's. Oh, Ian Lee's getaway.
So it seems to be my lot in life at the